Everybody, hi! Welcome to the story-worthy Hour of Power. My name is Christine Blackburn, and we are going to have a great time tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in week after week. This is our 11th show, and by our, I mean mine. But once again, I have four amazing talents on the Story Show with me tonight, and I know they're talented because they've all been on the Story-worthy podcast. Oh wait, one of them hasn't actually, Katie Love. By the way, Katie Love, no relation to Jason Love, who performed last week. Anyway, you guys, we're gonna have such a great night. I hope everybody is doing well out there. I know it's a confusing time, it's a difficult time, but it's really nice to get together every weekend, at least for 1 hour, not think about it. And then I hope you guys can also stick around for the after show tonight. We're playing Story Smash. And again, that gets better and better as well. Every week, Story Smash is just hilarious. And last week, we had a three-way tie, if you can imagine. It was a three-way tie, so 3 people got $10. That's the prize. It's usually cookies, but in this pandemic, it's money, which is not bad. Anyway, guys, we're having a blast, and everybody can play. Spin the wheel, tell a true 1-minute story, and it is a laugh. Tonight, Blanca Patch is back to judge, and also, Kira Soltanovich. Kira Soltanovich, headline comedian. She's telling a story tonight, and then she's also going to be judging. All right, you guys, again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and we're going to get this show going right away with the very first storyteller. Okay, this talent, you guys, coming on the show today, check this out. He has performed stand-up comedy on all of our continents. Yeah, all 12 of the continents. I kid, 7. Yes, we know, Christine, it's a joke. Including, though, you guys, really, Antarctica. How about that? I think it's very cool. Now, this guy has 12 videos on YouTube with over 100,000 downloads per video, and he's been featured on Amazon, NBC, NPR, Nickelodeon, Netflix, GQ, FX, The New York Times, The Wall Street Journal, Variety, The Times of India, The Huffington Post, and the LA Times. You guys, please put your hands together wherever you are for my friend, Rajiv Satyal. Yay! You're on, friend.
Wow. Thank you so much, Christine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, good. That's always the first thing I feel like I have to do during these virtual shows is being sure that people can actually hear me. It's odd doing a lot of these Zoom performances. There's sometimes a 5-second delay, but I'm prepared for that because, you know, I played the American set. You're ready for this. At any rate, I'm going to tell you a story about the very, very first time I did stand-up comedy, and it was performing for world #1 tennis player Pete Sampras. Okay, how in the world did this happen? Kind of a crazy story, and that's why I guess I'm telling it. So I was born, what a way to start telling a story. I was born, okay, let's fast forward a little bit here. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Apparently in Hamilton, well, not apparently in Hamilton, there's a birth certificate, but apparently the same hospital at which Tom Segura was born. So there's something in the water, although he's quite a bit funnier than I am. So you know what, I don't mean to insult you, Tom, funny guy. At any rate, I grew up outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, and one of the world's largest tennis tournaments takes place in Mason. So if you don't know much about tennis, or even if you do, I'll tell you that there are 4 Grand Slam tournaments: the French Open, the US Open, Wimbledon, and the Australian Open. And then there are, I don't know, tens and tens. Who says tens? It's usually hundreds or thousands, but tens of tournaments around the world. Well, excluding the 4 Grand Slams, you essentially have about 4 or 5 other Master Series tournaments that are massively large. Now they've added women to the tournament, so you have a men's and women's tournament. It's mandatory by the ATP Tour that every tennis player has to go. So it's this incredible thing. Somebody just commented, the Western Southern Open. That's exactly right. Wow, a tennis fan in the audience. I grew up a tennis fan too. I'm Indian. I don't know what the deal is with us with ping pong and tennis. They're very related sports, I guess. If you want to call ping pong a sport, I think that's more of a game. What's the difference? I don't know. That's out of scope. The point is, I was volunteering at this tournament for, I think I did 11 years in total, from 92 to 02, which is 11 years. You could do the math. Don't do the math. I'm Indian. I did it. And I started off as a ball boy. So if you saw the Seinfeld where Kramer tries to become a ball man, well, they really do exist. There are ball boys and ball girls, usually under the age of 18, boys and girls. And we audition, and you have to be quick, quiet, and know the rules of the game. You have the best seat in the house. You're a ball boy at a tournament. You're on ESPN. It's insane. So one year, it was particularly dreary, and it rained a lot. A lot of the matches were canceled, and usually it's a really fun time. August in Cincinnati, it's hot, but it's usually very upbeat. And this time, the food courts were wiped out because of the rain, and the matches were delayed. It just wasn't a great time. So a friend of mine said to me, he goes, why don't you walk up to Pete Sampras? And, there's this Charlie the tuna fish, mascot walking around. Why don't you, ask him if he'd be willing to wear that mascot, go out on center court, start hitting some balls, and then he takes it off, and it's Pete Sampras. And I look at him, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That is a stupid idea. He goes, no, but it would cheer people up. And I go, I'm not doing it. It's my friend Neil. He goes, well, I knew you didn't have the balls to do it. Oh, okay, wait a second. You just said that to a teenage boy, or really any male of any age, I think. And I go, all right, fine. If it's about the balls, and this is tennis, I'm going in. I'm going to ask Pete Sampras. Okay. None of you have ever walked up to a celebrity. It's very difficult, okay? It's far more difficult than trying to do man on street interviews, or sweet interviews, I guess, if you have them in your room. Louis C.K., anyone? Too soon? Anyway, the point being that even asking out the best-looking girl in your class in high school pales in comparison to walking up to a celebrity. It's very hard, especially one of whom you've had posters all over your wall. Him and Andre Agassi all through the 90s, growing up, idolizing these two men. So this was after I was a ball boy, okay? I kissed enough ass. I worked in the player locker room. I got to see a lot of the players, probably more than I needed to see. And Pete Sampras is there, and he's signing a bunch of things for Children's Hospital. And I got assigned the task of helping him do this. And I go, Pete, first name basis here, why don't you maybe consider, and I pitch him Neil's idea. He looks at me, doesn't say a word, and walks out of the room. And I am so embarrassed. It's so humiliating. And the other staff members were like, what are you doing talking to Pete Sampras? I'm like, I don't know, nothing. I would just, nothing. So that year, I'm watching ESPN, and it turns out that the San Diego Chicken is this mascot that's messing with Chris Berman and Dan Patrick and all these people on the set of SportsCenter, ESPN. And he goes outside for a drink of water out of bottled water and out of a bottle, and he takes off the head, and it's Pete Sampras. And I look at the TV like he stole my idea, Jerry. I feel like Kramer in Seinfeld. I cannot believe this actually happened. Neil calls me, goes, are you watching ESPN right now? I go, I am. He goes, now you got to talk to him. So it is. Tournament rolls around. Time when you're a kid lasts for now. In this day and age, right? Next year you can wait. We're quarantining, it's fine. But as a kid, the next week takes forever. I'm like, oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to wait this long? I get to the tournament. I'm there again, and I pitch it to Pete Sampras, and I go, hey, you know what, Pete? I can't believe that you stole the idea that I pitched you about this Charlie the Tuna Kiss, and you did this ESPN commercial. He goes, I got to be honest, he was really nice about it. He goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. I go, I pitched you this idea last year. He goes, well, I'm really sorry, man. And I go, well, I got to be completely honest with you. I was going to put that in my act. And he goes, what are you, a stand-up comic? And I go, well, I'm trying to be. He goes, tell me a joke. I go, well, I got to think. And he goes, you're going to have to be a lot faster than that if you're going to be a stand-up comic. I go, all right, let me get my notes. He goes, no, just tell me a joke. I go, come on, Pete, let me just get my notes, please. I run out. And Brian, my supervisor, is like, what are you doing? Again, well, what is it with you and Pete Sampras? Leave the guy alone. You're not really supposed to talk to them. And he's getting his ankle worked on. Just chill. I go, you know what? Is number one tennis player in the world, Brian, the supervisor. Screw it. If I'm getting fired from a volunteer job like George and Seinfeld, a lot of Seinfeld references here, I go, all right, fine. I'll go out on top or on bottom, whatever. I'm going in. I grab my notebook. I run back. And I do my act for Pete Sampras in August of 1998. I had not even gone on stage yet at Go Bananas Comedy Club in Cincinnati. I just had a bunch of my material. I do it. He's laughing mostly at me and sometimes with me. The best part of the whole thing was there's a doctor, a hotshot sports medicine doctor. They're all that way, by the way. And he keeps trying to interrupt me. And I couldn't stand this son of a bitch. And at some point, Pete looks at him and he goes, you know what? I'm trying to listen to the kid, okay? I'm like, oh, dude, this is so sweet. So I finished my act and whatever else. And I'm sitting with him afterwards. Everybody clears out, and just Pete and I in this little room. And I go, so what do you think, man? And he goes, you got potential, which is, I mean, so sweet of him to say. That's like what you say clearly to somebody who's like, yeah, nice guy, right? Should I put him on my show? Nice guy. That's pretty much it. So ultimately, I got a picture with him the following year. He actually said to me, he goes, you didn't do any Indian material. And I go, no. And he goes, you should. He's like, you should do Indian material. He goes, I go, I also don't know if I should stay clean. I don't know if I should swear. And he goes, I don't think you should swear. He goes, I just watched Seinfeld's special. He doesn't swear. Why don't you stay clean? Do some Indian material. For 2 years, the first 2 years of my career, I didn't do any Indian material. And then I leaned into being the funnyndian.com. There you go. I can get a plug in at any point in time. Just at Funny Indian Instagram. You want me to plug myself way through the rest of the story? That's fine. Ultimately, I got to thank Pete Sampras for being my first audience. Going on stage after that was super easy. I killed, which a lot of comics do their first time out. And if I have to give anybody the credit, besides my parents and my family and all my good friends who supported me the first time out, I got to give a shout out to Pete Sampras, the first person for whom I ever did stand-up comedy. And now I'm here with Christine on your show. Come a long way. Apparently, he lives in Manhattan Beach. I got to look him up. Thanks, Pete. Thank you, Christine.
Wow, that was a great story, Rajiv. Oh my gosh, I love tennis. My father went to like 15 U.S. Opens, and his favorite player was Pete Sampras. That's so awesome. Have you ever read the book Open by Andre Agassi?
So my confession is Andre Agassi is actually my favorite player. I met him, I don't know if I'll remember the date, April 3rd, 1991. I was 15 years old. And I met him years later at the same tournament, got to re-meet him, got pictures with him and Pete. He's still my favorite player. I think it's still the best sports biography in history and two of the players that I love more than anyone else.
Biography. It's so good, you guys. It's just called Open by Andre Agassi. And how about my boyfriend, Rafael Nadal? Do you know my boyfriend, Rafael?
Hey, good luck to the two of you. I tell you, you two are going to be very happy. You and Rafa.
Yeah, as soon as his wife finds out, and I think she's pregnant. So there you go. Lovely, lovely, Christine. Thanks, Rajiv. That was terrific.
Hey, get them when they're down. That's what I say. How fast can she move? You could run away with them.
All right, you guys. The next person coming up to the stage, she's so sweet. I love this girl so much. She's a writer and a comedian based here in Los Angeles, and she's the creator, producer, and host of the Katie Love Show. It's a live comedy talk show, and she's also the producer of the new unscripted series, The Laugh Gallery. And she's also written for the LA Times and Yahoo News, and her new memoir, 2 Tickets to Paradise from Cult to Comedy, will be out very, very soon. Please welcome my friend, Katie Love.
There we go. Hi, everybody. How are you? Had to mute myself. Still getting used to the admin tasks here at the Katie Love life in isolation here during the pandemic. Really excited. Today, I am going to read from my book, 2 Tickets to Paradise from Cult to Comedy. And it's a memoir about growing up Jehovah's Witness. In case you didn't know, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. Don't worry, I am not going to be sending you any watchtowers and awakes with all those crazy pictures of people lazing by a river and carrying fruit around, and you don't really know, but you are living in the last days. And of course, with murder hornets and death at the doorstep, now it's really the case. But I've left the religion several years now, so you're safe. I want you to feel safe, okay? But this, I'll tell you what, it gives me the corner on knock knock jokes. We can do that together now, only I won't be able to hear you, so I'll have to say your line too. That's not indicative of isolation at all. I'll just do your line too. Knock knock. What's that? Who's there? Jehovah's Witness. What's that? Jehovah's Witness who? You mean you're interested? That's never happened before. All right, now let's get to the reading, shall we? Thank you so much, you guys. I'm very excited about this. So the first chapter of 2 Tickets to Paradise from Cult to Comedy is Picking Fruit in Paradise. The first time my inherited childhood religion was not, I was standing at a stranger's door feeling like a quick draw cowgirl, my right hand resting ever so slightly on the latest copy of The Watchtower and Awake, waiting, watching, listening for the faintest sign of interest. I was poised and ready to whip out my weapons, twirl them around, and point to a picture of paradise, which usually consisted of savage beasts, now docile, commingling with domesticated humans near a waterfall. The domesticated humans wore suits, sundresses, and a glazed-over expectant smile while busily picking fruit, which, as a child, always disturbed me. Why was everyone picking fruit, and why were they doing it in their dress clothes? I'd seen farmers harvesting their crops in the middle of the day. It didn't look like paradise to me. The stranger that turned my childhood beliefs upside down was a long and lean musician type, devastatingly handsome, shirtless, sweaty, oozing sin, his hip bones just barely caressing the top of his jeans. He had dirty, mangled hair, the kind of hair one gets when they're brilliant and tortured, too creatively inspired to engage in something as common as grooming. He looked deep into my eyes and let his gaze travel slowly over the rest of my body, over my pastel-colored sundress and my thick, flesh-colored nylons that met up with sensibly heeled sandals. I gulped. Hello, how are you today? I'm good, baby. How are you? He answered, reaching up into the doorframe as if searching for a hidden key, stretching, seductive, cat-like. I'm pretty good too, huh? Nice day. Really nice, he purred. What can I do for you, pretty girl? So uncool, man. How could I do it? How could I tell him that I was a Jehovah's Witness there to share a Bible thought? Ew, who cared about that? I wanted to share anything but the Bible with this stranger. I wanted to lose myself in his filthy hair and sing folk songs and drink moonshine if that's what he was offering. I wanted to burn 666 in his chest hair and take a Polaroid, send it to the JW headquarters. But then it hit me. He's not as important as seeing her again. Nothing was as important as that. I had to keep the faith whether it made sense or not. I had to do everything perfectly if I ever wanted to see her again, because he was watching. Not to mention, I didn't recognize any of the stirrings in my body, or why my face felt like it was on fire, or why my voice was quivering. I could only trust what I'd been taught. Faith is the assured expectation of things hoped for. Oh, how I hoped to see her again. Reluctantly, but with practiced robotic skill, I reached into my bag and pulled out the latest and greatest editions of the Watchtower and Awake and said, I'm here to share a Bible thought. Have you ever thought about living in paradise? I winced, waiting for the laugh or the standard, I'm not interested, but what I heard instead was, maybe. Will you be there, baby? I'd like to share some paradise with you. Laughter from another room, a waft of sweet smoke, a yank of my arm, a closing door, more laughter, and standing in the middle of a bright, sunny day on a banal suburban street. My reality altered, carnal questions rushing through my veins. Sister, snapped the senior citizen zealot that had lost me a few houses back. Never go to the door alone. It's very dangerous. That man was not interested in hearing the truth. I took a long look at my elderly companion, who had spent her entire life shuffling from door to door, speaking the truth to strangers on their porches, their front yards, and their living rooms. Strangers who had stopped washing their car for just a moment to turn down the radio long enough to be polite and utter over a barking dog, no thank you. Strangers who were despondent or just plain tired, wearily chasing their kids around, who would ask just who she thought she was to interrupt their day. Strangers who had invited her in and read along from their own Bibles, searching for answers, wary of this thing called the truth and the arduous possibility of living forever. I looked into her piercing blue eyes of servitude and without hesitation said, no one cares, this is dumb. Wait in the car, she replied curtly. Clearly, you need more Bible study. I was 12 years old, and I had experienced an epiphany. The truth does not necessarily set you free. So now we're going to jump ahead to way into adulthood. Now I've decided that I'm going to leave my religion. And the funny part about this is that those witnesses promise paradise as the little carrot that they dangle, to say, hey, you know, this is the groovy religion. This is how you're going to be happy for eternal life. You're going to live in paradise. Well, I ended up losing my religion on Paradise Island in the Bahamas by fornicating my brains out with an islander who owned a banana boat business, because I like things that are phallic. So he owned a banana boat business, and that was a good time. And we fornicated our brains out on a white sanded beach. And then afterward, he stole my traveler's checks. That's the wage that sin pays. And I just thought that was normal. Since I was a fornicator, I should definitely be punished for it. And if you don't know what traveler's checks are, those are, they mean nothing, basically. And if you don't know what traveler's checks are, you're probably too young to be up and watching this show. But basically, they're just pieces of paper that you sign your name on. You used to take them on vacation in the 70s, 80s, and I think they were done by the 90s. But now, if anybody ever asks me if I've paid for sex, why, yes. Yes, I have. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I have to offer you tonight.
Wow, Katie Love, you are so sweet. Thanks, Katie. And
Thank you.
And that book's coming out when exactly?
That book is making the rounds with publishers now, and my agent, and blah, 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 and the whole stuff that goes, the whole rigmarole that goes behind the scenes of publishing these days. So it's making the rounds. Putnam's taking a look, and we'll see what happens. Well, but I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
That's really exciting, Katie. You're so talented, really.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I hope you can stick around and play a little story smash later.
I would love it. Yes, absolutely.
Of course, Katie. That'd be awesome. I don't know if you guys have noticed that Blanca Patch, he's one of our judges tonight, and he sort of keeps coming out and in. He's the cocker. And he is now out until 7 o'clock. We think. We're not positive. Anyway, you guys, this has been super fun. Thank you so much so far to two of our storytellers, and we have two more storytellers coming up. But before that, I wanted to share with you guys another story, kind of where we left off last week. If you can just stay with me, I'm going to update people very quickly what went down. I became a flight attendant for 7 years, and I stopped flying, and I decided, instead of flying and just being gone all the time and going to hotel after hotel and restaurant, and I decided to just forget everything and go to the Peace Corps, as one will. So now I'm in the Peace Corps in the Kingdom of Tonga, which is in the South Pacific. The first 6 weeks were a little rough. You heard about it, you guys. Cockroaches, big cockroaches, thousands of cockroaches, major thunderstorms, a lot of mud, and a pig stole my toothbrush. So the good news is, when I was done with training, I got my first choice of placement, which was on in the capital city of Nuku'alofa, on the main island, where there are about 30,000 people. Now, the main island of Nuku'alofa was like going to the big city. I mean, there are roads, and there's cars, and there was the airport, and there were stores, and it was really exciting. There was even a hotel called the International Dateline Hotel, because Tonga sits right on the International Dateline and is the first country in the whole world to greet the new year. So I am on the capital island, and I spent a lot of time at the International Dateline Hotel because they had a bar. Yay! But I not only spent time there, trust me, I toured all over the island before my position was starting. So training is behind me, 6 weeks behind me. And now my real job for the next 2.5 years is going to be starting, and I'll be teaching English to high school students. So I'm on the main island, and it is so beautiful. I can't even tell you. I'd go to the International Dateline Hotel bar and drink royal beer, which has a picture of the king on the cover, of course. And then the Tongans and I, we just bonded immediately. It was really great. And they took me to see all the fabulous sights on the island, including these huge, they call them flying foxes. but actually they're fruit bats with a 6-foot wingspan. They're massive. And you look up at them roosting in these trees, especially at dusk, and they look like black blankets all over the tree branches. And then one by one, as it gets darker, they take to the sky and expand their wings, and you've just never seen anything like it. Just like a flop, 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 flop. I mean, really frightening looking. The Tongans took me to see their famous Tongan blowholes, which are a really amazing sight that I'd never seen anywhere in the world. You stand there on the beach and you look out, and it's like the Bellagio dancing fountains start up. I'm not kidding. It's just like psh, 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 in the ocean, and it's just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I would stare out at those blowholes and the fountains going off, and my toes are in the warm sand and in the warm water, and I was at peace. I was so happy I came. This was exactly what I needed. This was my purpose. Then a couple of nights later, I woke up and I was staying with another homestay family. I woke up in the middle of the night with a backache in my lower back, right down here, real low on my right side. And it was so bad that I was delirious. I never felt anything like this. It was just a crazy feeling, and I was sweating profusely. And I called out to the homestay mother, Magalete, and she came into my room. She crawled underneath my mosquito net with me, and she put her hand on my forehead right away, you know, like any mother would do. And she left, and she came back with these cold rags, and she placed them on my head, and she rocked over me. She just kept rocking, and she was saying, Palongi puke, de vului ulu. Palongi puke, de vului ulu. Now that means the Palongi is me. It means the white person is sick. Palongi de ulu. Now the next sentence, de vului ulu, was the devil's in your stomach. So that's what she said, and she said it twice. So that night, Magalete stayed with me, and I kind of went in and out of consciousness. And finally, in the morning, the sun came up, and they took me to the hospital in Tonga. Now, this is the only hospital on the island. It's called Viola Hospital. And it's hard to explain, right? It's like bits of plywood held together with some cement. It's a third world hospital. But I go in and I meet a doctor who tells me to call him George, and he speaks perfect English, and this is encouraging. He did an exam, and then it was decided that he would take my appendix out the next day. Wait, George. Hold on. You guys don't have any water at this hospital, okay? I gave my urine sample in a coffee cup. Did you even test my pee? George, you're barefoot. I don't think you should be cutting me open here. I left the hospital that day with some Tylenol, and there was no way I was getting an operation in a hospital without running water. So over the next week or so, I kept getting these massive fevers, and I was really ill. So the Peace Corps directed me, the Peace Corps director medevaced me out of Tonga into the closest island, which was Hawaii. And I get to Hawaii, and they do some blood tests, and they do a CAT scan, and they find a huge tumor in my kidney. Yeah. And I say, no. That can't be, because I'm a runner. Okay, I am a vegetarian. And did you check my appendix? And the doctor said, Miss Blackburn, it's not your appendix. So I had some further tests done, and then they flew me to Washington, D.C. on January 7th, which is my birthday. And it was my 31st birthday, and I got off the plane. I was in my long Tongan sarong. I was in a thin t-shirt, and I was in my teva sandals. And it was like, 5 degrees in Washington, D.C. And I got off the plane, and I'm walking down the jetway, and I could see my mom and my sister were waiting for me. That's when other people could come into the boarding area. And they were waiting for me. My mom, she had my winter coat in her hand. And she said, honey, here, put your coat on. Put your coat on, honey. You need your coat, honey. And I was so pissed. Like it all just came down on me like, you've got to be kidding me. I don't want a coat. I don't want to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be on my rockstar island in the South Pacific. And 2 days later, they took my kidney out. It was called a radical nephrectomy. And they took my kidney out, and I spent another month in DC. And then I had to go back to Pittsburgh, my hometown, for chemotherapy. Yay! No less, it was February. So that was a drag. But in the back of my mind, I kept thinking that, you know, I'll go back to Tonga. I get to go back. Of course I'll go back. But then it turns out that they wouldn't let me go back until I was 5 years cancer-free because I would need CAT scans, etc. So I didn't know what to do. I decided to go back to the airline, actually. I mean, my money was running out. I was living on my savings from being a flight attendant. But now, like 5 months have gone by, I'm still in chemotherapy. All my hair is gone, and I'm very sick, but I need a job. How am I going to live? So I go back to my supervisor at US Air, and I ask him for my job back, and he says, no. And I said, oh, come on. Mel, honestly. I was flight attendant of the month out of like 9,000 flight attendants. Remember that? Do you remember that emergency on the 727? I helped a lot. Like, I totally calmed those people down. Didn't I? Remember, the engine blew out. I saved the day. He simply said, no. Goodbye, Christine. Thanks so much for working with us. So now I'm in Pittsburgh, and I can't go back to the Peace Corps. I can't go back to the airline, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so I started going down to the comedy club in Pittsburgh, the Funny Bone, where I had done some stand-up before. And anybody can get on stage, of course. So I started going up, and I started wearing these different wigs just to see if the audience would even notice. I'd wear like a short brown wig, and then another wig, and another wig. In between acts, I started hosting a lot. And in between, I'm wearing different wigs. Nobody's catching on. At the end, I'd come out like in a rainbow afro wig. And anyway, then I did my cancer bit. Hilarious, you can imagine. But I had a lot of time to think. During all that time in Pittsburgh and recovering, I had a lot of time to think. And I started thinking, you know, what if I could be a funny person outside of Pittsburgh? You know, like what if I could go to the comedy capital of the world, Los Angeles? I mean, yeah, sure, I wasn't a full-fledged comedian, but I could try, I could work toward it. But what about the money? LA is expensive. And I thought, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a check in the mail. It's an insurance payment. It turns out they're gonna give me a loss of organ payment. Yeah, you get paid when you lose an organ. So for losing a kidney, I got $16,000 a year, and I had it broken up. So with that money, and you know, I bought a Toyota Celica, a used Celica, and with that, well, there's no reason not to head out to LA. I mean, look, sure, I was more afraid of moving to Los Angeles than a third world country, and rightly so. But I decided after having a huge garage sale to pick up and head out to LA, because if I can survive being a flight attendant and going through emergency situations, and I can survive cockroach-laden latrines, and I can survive a pig taking my toothbrush, well, I can certainly survive a third world country. And so, excuse me, I can certainly survive Los Angeles. And so, you know, I came out here, and, you know, it seems cliche, you know, that cancer gave me the impetus to be here, but really, that's exactly what happened, you know, because life is short, as we all know, and we just have to reach for it and go for it. And even if you can't get on TV, well, maybe you can get on Zoom, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, you guys, I'm super happy to be here. I've been in LA now for 23 years in August, and I just love it. I definitely have found now my true purpose. I think you know what I mean. Anyway, all right, you guys, so we're going to move on in a second. Well, look at these nice people are saying nice things. How sweet. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Look at that. I'll put on something. Oh, good. Oh, look, there's Soltanovich. She's going to be coming up in just a minute. There's my Twitter feed. I do love Twitter. If you're on Twitter, please follow me. I have such a good time. I just love Twitter. All right, you guys, we're gonna keep moving along. And this next guy coming to the stage, he's so talented. He's been on Storyworthy with one of my very favorite stories over the last 10 years. Honestly, he's just so good and just so well-spoken. And he's also a very good friend. He sends me awesome updates about things going on in town. And he only sends the funny cartoons. And he's just a really good person. He is a comedian and a sitcom writer, producer. He's a journalist, a marketing copywriter, and a humorist for the Los Angeles Times Syndicate. He's also a great gigs interviewer and a humor blogger for the Huffington Post. He wrote about me in there. Thanks, Mark. His first book, you guys, it's a collection of his humor essays on dating and romance. It's called 500 Dates, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the Online Dating Wars. You guys, please welcome my very good friend, Mark Miller. Hi, Mark.
Request that I would only appear if I could follow somebody who's discussing finding a cancerous tumor within their body. So that set me up very well. I appreciate that. And this is a little embarrassing because my story happens to deal with my experience also in Tonga, dealing with fornicating with a Jehovah's Witness on a banana boat while a pig was stealing my toothbrush, which was later returned by Pete Sampras. So instead of doing that story, because I don't want to repeat anything, I'm going to do a different story. And it deals with, I guess we're all missing a lot of things during this pandemic lockdown. And one of the things, perhaps, is traveling. We're all thinking back fondly on our trips and wondering if and when we'll ever be able to travel again. So I'm going to do this piece, an essay I wrote called Confessions of a Reluctant Traveler. World travel was never high on my priority list. I was forced to attend 3 different high schools in 3 different states because my father was always changing jobs. That left me with a strong preference for staying put. I've lived in the same apartment for the past quarter of a century. My idea of a fun trip is to Trader Joe's for Persian cucumbers. Plus, multinational sightseeing can be expensive, and I was rarely someone with a lot of disposable income. And when my 2 children were young, I just didn't see long-distance expeditions as a practical option. Needless to say, the regular news reports of bombings, kidnappings, and terrorist attacks didn't exactly serve to whet my appetite for hopping on a plane for distant parts. I was pretty sure that if something terrible were to happen, I'd be the one whose frantic family would receive the ransom demand. It was understandable then that by my mid-60s, the closest I'd come to using my passport was dinner at Who's Szechuan Cafe in Los Angeles. So I was surprised as anyone to find myself at the age of 67, a year prior to the current pandemic, on an all Nippon Airways jet, winging across the Pacific to kick off a 17-day trip to Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Okay, granted, I took a boatload of cautious traveler precautions, a hepatitis A vaccine, malaria tablets, typhoid medication, mosquito lotion, sun protection, and the antibiotic Cipro. If I was going to come down with something, it wouldn't be for lack of preparation. The last time I'd even thought about Vietnam was as a college student in the 70s. I spent many a sleepless night envisioning myself being snatched by the US government directly from my Introduction to Shakespeare class and dropped into the perilous jungles of Hanoi. Why in God's name, then, was I now heading back to the scene of my nightmare for a supposedly fun vacation? Do you really need to ask? It's for the same reason, of course, that so many men do so many things that may not have been their first choice, to please their romantic partner. Oh yes, how many members of my gender have found themselves cleaning their homes, grooming their bodies, attending chick flicks, writing thank you notes, and chewing with their mouths closed solely out of fear that Love Lake would dry up. Which is exactly why, when my girlfriend indicated on many more than one occasion how enchanted she was by visiting new places, how much she wanted to explore the world with me, and how oh so important this was to her, little cracks began appearing in my lifelong aversion to venturing outside the comfort zone of my zip code. Love conquers all, the wall crumbled, and one day I found myself reluctantly agreeing to a Southeast Asia adventure. And you know what? The expedition wasn't nearly as traumatic as I feared. In fact, keep this to yourself, but I'd even go so far as to say that, well, I kind of enjoyed it. The food, cultures, people, educational aspects, and so much more. I took tons of photos. I ate things I could not pronounce. I rode an ox cart through a rice paddy. Let me repeat that. A Jewish man rode an ox cart through a rice paddy. I had a 2-hour foot massage for $22. I became addicted to fresh papaya served on banana leaves with a side of passion fruit. I didn't even come down with anything other than a little jet lag. And the great news is I never once had to fight my way out of a jungle with a machete. Experiencing this strange and wonderful part of my world also gave me a new appreciation for other peoples and cultures. And don't think I'm not grateful for the best part. It has reinvigorated our love life. I even took the lead on suggesting some possibilities for our next expedition: Rio, Barcelona, or Mykonos, especially if one of them is on sale. Naturally, with my perfect sense of timing, this had to happen just before the coronavirus lockdown, which brought the travel industry to a screeching halt. So, until it's safe to explore the world again, I'll do so via online and TV travel shows and National Geographic magazine. I know, not quite the same, but the safety factor balances it out. You might think from all this that I've learned to face my fears head on and continually challenge myself for the sake of personal growth and enlightenment. You would be thinking wrong. I'm not about to start hang gliding, trying LSD, or eating steak tartare. Unless, of course, my sweetie makes them deal breakers. After all, I'm nothing if not reasonable. Thank you.
Oh man, you're the best. Mark Miller, you guys. Mark Miller, Mark Miller. Yay! Mark Miller, thank you so much. Mark, do you remember that story you told one time on Storyworthy about, the title of it was Hollywood's, it was something about the rotating nature of Hollywood?
Yeah, it was mainly about the garage sales and yard sales you find throughout Hollywood, and how all the things that they sell there are sort of portraits of struggles and failed lives in the show business world.
Yeah, it's a great article, but damn depressing. I mean, it is so true. You walk around the neighborhoods, especially on Saturdays and Sundays in LA, and you'll see a lot of yard sales. So you stop by and they're selling things like, you know, On Writing, or, you know, the actor's handbook, or like poster, like movie memorabilia posters, and they're leaving town. That's the way it goes.
That's right.
The herd is called.
How to Write a Script in 21 Days.
Exactly. Oh yeah, How to Write a Script. And the other one that's always out is The Artist's Way.
Yeah. Right. In fact, I would say about 75% of my apartment is furnished with items from these yard sales.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. All right, thanks again, Mark. I appreciate it. Oh, look, the polls are hot. The polls are exciting. The most recent poll question: how many black jumpsuits does Christine have? Well, is it 9, 22, or 29? So, see, some people go high because they think, well, if she look at. By the way, look how I'm just using this. There's no microphone. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, this is Hollywood. This is an illusion. It's not hooked up to anything. Absolutely nothing. No. Anyway, so I like how some people went for 29 because you're going high. And then other people went low And then, of course, in the middle, there's a few people. Well, I have 9. So there you go. All right. That was the fun poll for the evening. Thank you for joining and playing along. Okay, you guys, the final storyteller coming up. She's a comedian. She's just fabulous, and I really look forward to laughing. She is a powerhouse, honestly. She really is. She's one of these stand-up comedians that just comes out and commands the stage. She's just a terrific, terrific person. She's headlined comedy clubs all around the country, and she has a 1-hour comedy special on Amazon called You Did This to Me, and ironically, it was shot by my ex-husband. How about that? It's a very small world. And it's a wonderful series. It's super funny. 1-hour comedy series. And also, check this out. This girl, she was a regular on The Tonight Show for almost 9 seasons with Jay Leno, doing the longest skit that Jay ever did, which was the telephone girl or something about that, the telephone booth, something like that. Super funny. She's a fabulous girl, you guys. Please, wherever you are, put your hands together for the fabulous Soltanovich.
Awesome. This is exactly the way I want it. Let me tell you something. I'm going to pretend this Zoom show is like my marriage. Someone is listening, even though I can't tell. You guys are lucky because I actually, my grays are down to here. That's why I have this hat on. I'm never leaving the house without a hat until beauty salons are open. I can't do it myself. I can't because it comes out like a zebra. I can't do it. So I'm wearing a hat, but I usually have a rule when I do these Zoom shows. If you got to Zoom, you don't got to groom. I'm holding for laughter. But you guys are lucky. I threw on a little fancy mascara. And because here's why. I did that because here's why. In real life, I always thought I was kind of like a 7. You know, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm a Zoom 3. So I need to throw on some lip gloss. Okay, so I know we're supposed to tell stories, but I have to do like a real stand-up show in a couple days, and I haven't done it in months, and I haven't shaved my legs in the same amount of time. So I'm going to practice some jokes on you guys. I hope that's okay, because here's the situation. I'm sequestered with 2 children and a husband, and I would never have done either of those things if I knew a quarantine was in my future. I wouldn't have. I'm just being honest. And my kids are 4 and 9, and they are sheltering in place, sheltering in uterus. That's where they're in lockdown. Right back. I just shoved them right back in there, and I was like, "You'll get out when there's a vaccine." So that's where it's safe right now for them. And thankfully, my husband is still working. Thank goodness. But it's very confusing for the kids because they're like, "Daddy, play with us." And he's like, "I'm working," right? But he's on the couch in his underwear, clipping his toenails with his teeth. So it's confusing for the children. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best during this lockdown with homeschooling and all that. But I'm not qualified at all. Look at me. I'm a clown. I'm not qualified. 3rd grade math is over my head. And they're not nice to me. They're not nice. Here's the thing. I'm not their real teacher. I'm a sub. Remember how you treated the substitute teachers when you were a kid? We were awful to them. Boo! You're not my real teacher. Put on a movie. So they're not kind. They're not good kids. But we are gardening because you got to do one of 3 things during a pandemic. You have to either rescue a dog, and good for you if you're a good person. Make sourdough bread. No thanks, right? And have a garden. So we did the garden. So we have a garden outside, and I'm churning my own butter, and I'm growing a beard. So we're Amish. We're Amish now. And I call my husband Jebediah, right? It's kind of hot. And I just run around the house yelling, "No zippers." But to be honest, Jews and Amish are very similar, right? Just weird facial choices and wool pants in the summer. Come on, guys. They're the same people. So I'm going to pause for laughter. Here's the thing with these Zoom shows. Usually I see people, and now that I don't, I actually miss seeing people, because regular comedy shows, right? Someone's talking or heckling or being loud, they're out of there, right? But a Zoom show, usually you see all the folks and you can't do anything about it, right? Some chick is changing her diva cup. There's a guy, checking for testicular lumps. Everyone's just in their house doing their own thing. And God bless you for even showing up to this. Which, did you really show up if I can't see you and I can't hear you, right? If a Zoom show happens in the woods, did it happen? Look, guys, I'm not trying to put this show down, but I do have a walkie-talkie headlining set after this, so I should wrap this up soon. I have some very angry friends. A couple of my friends are losing their mind, right? They cannot handle this COVID. I have one who's like texting me, right? She's like, I'm never buying anything from China again, as she's texting on her iPhone, right? This chick is a lunatic. She's really taking this COVID stuff like really seriously. So she goes to Target, okay? When she comes back, she sits on her front porch for 2 weeks, then takes off all her clothes and burns them on her front lawn, right, to be safe, and then sprays Roundup into all of her orifices. This is the same chick who would buy Molly with me at a rave from a guy who had a tooth growing out of his eyebrow. But now all of a sudden she's cautious. It's interesting. I want to just talk about some health stuff since we're talking about, COVID. I do have a thyroid situation. I have a hemorrhoid growing out of my thigh. So wear a mask. Don't be selfish, because I know that's how I got it. Let's see. I don't know what's happening. I am trying to lose weight because, you don't want to get COVID butt, right? And I've been watching workout videos. I'm not doing them, but I'm watching. Kind of like how you watch the Travel Channel. Ooh, one day I want to go there to Ab Town. It's difficult, right? Because nothing's open. And how many times can I go around the same people's backyards? I'm trespassing. It's boring, right? After a while, it's boring just to like go take a walk. So I got a Zoom personal trainer, and he said, it's all about muscle confusion. And I said, trust me, they're confused. This whole area from boobs to pubes, nightmare. This whole area, my varicose veins and my stretch marks are starting to like kind of come together to form words. Like it says, help me on the side here. It looks like Coachella just left my belly area. There's a lot of trash and mud spots and tire tracks and herpes. So there's intermittent fasting, right? You guys have heard of that. That's what people are telling me to do. I'm not going to do that. I am doing intermittent yelling, which is for 16 hours. I don't yell at my kids at all. And then for 8 hours straight, I just let them have it. It's worked. It's really worked. I feel healthier. So we're trying to keep it interesting, right? For their schooling. I got to homeschool again, right? So we got an app on our phone. I highly recommend it. It's called Night Sky, right? And you could like see like the planets, and they're learning science and they're learning solar system, right? So that's awesome. And then also my kids like to watch me shower. So they're learning anatomy and biology and what happens to an aging human body. It's important. No privacy, right? When you have children, zero. It's like the FBI and an IRS auditor constantly in your house, just everywhere you're going. What are you doing? What's over there? What's that? What can I? But my husband and I are trying to we promised each other, we're going to keep it, we're going to keep our relationship strong. The other day we made out with tongue. We did. Well, I tripped over a Lego while he was yawning. But I'm going to count that. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Thank God as a human. I got to wrap it up. So I'll end on this. Are we really that surprised that this Tinder generation can't socially distance? Are we really that surprised? We're not, are we? These are people who swipe one time on their phone and they're fingering each other behind an Applebee's. Are we really? All right, that's my time, guys. That's my story. And thank you, Christine, for letting me practice this set.
Amazing. Kira Soltanovich, you're so funny.
I don't know if anyone's even watching. Is this even happening, or is this just me and you?
Happening.
It's just me and you, I have a feeling.
We got a big audience, like 82 people here, man. And
What?
I'm watching you, and I know they're laughing at home. I just know it.
I don't know.
Kira, we've got about 2 more minutes left. Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Your family came from Russia.
That's why I'm wearing this. Yes, I'm representing.
Okay, so tell me about that then.
Well, we are Soviets, very different than Russians. And I moved my parents down here during this pandemic because it's hard for old people, right? I told my mom, and I was like, don't go shopping. I will do all of your food shopping. Like, I will go for you. And she's like, I like waiting in line at Trader Joe's for food. It's like nostalgia for me. It's memory lane. So yeah, we are the Soviet Jews.
I think it's fascinating. I really.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
Funny girl, man. You're a fabulous comic. Thank you so much for doing this. And then you're going to be judging Story Smash with Blaine Capatch. It's coming up here in just a second. But before that happens, I just want to remind you guys to please tune into Storyworthy every week. This week, Bill Dawes is on, and then, or that's now, but then coming up, a girl named Damona Hoffman is on this Tuesday. She is a dating expert. I've never talked to a dating expert, but she will be there on Tuesday and telling us a story and the dating rules. So we're going to hear all the rules this week. I can't wait. And now we're going to be starting Story Smash. Blaine Capatch is going to take over for a minute. But before I bring him on, I want to give a big thanks, you guys, to all the storytellers tonight. Thank you so much. Rajiv, Satyal, go ahead and start clapping. Reveal yourself. Katie Love. Katie Love. Yay, Katie. And there's Mark Miller. Yay, Mark Miller. Kira Soltanovich, of course. What an amazing girl. And thank you guys so much. My name is Christine Blackburn. Good night.
My own bets and I make my own deals. So if you're following me, you better make clear, yeah. Hey, hey, hey. If you're looking for heaven, baby, the line forms to the rear, and you can follow me.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast.